great pleasure to welcome you again to our Energy Forum 2021, which this year is a YouTube channel and a YouTube cluster. And we are continuing to discuss on the most important and most relevant topics in the energy sector in the year 2021. I'm Robert Juodka, your host for this event, and we are continuing with gas. Last week we had a very interesting speaker from the Lithuanian transmission system operator of the gas network on the future of usage of the gas systems, how the existing gas pipelines could be used for hydrogen energy usage and other issues. And today we're still continuing with the topic of gas, which cannot be underestimated in these hot days, especially in the gas market. And we are having a speaker from Poland today, who is Ms. Agata Łoskot Strachota, who is a coordinator of OSV's research work on Europe's gas markets and policies. OSV, or in Polish, Ośrodek Studiów Wschodnich, which means Center for Eastern Studies, is a government-funded think tank in Poland, which is obviously very much engaged in all the matters in connection to energy, geopolitics, geostrategic, economic issues. So I'm very sure that we will have a very interesting conversation with Ms. Agata here today. And the topic of today's discussion is natural gas again. And what is the future of natural gas in the region, meaning the Baltic Sea region, and in the European Union? So without further ado, dear Agata, the floor is yours.
Thank you a lot for invitation and for possibility of speaking at such a distinguished energy forum. And indeed, I will be talking about natural gas, and the situation on natural gas market is quite, let's say, tense in Europe. So this is very important topic, as you said. Well, natural gas is evidently one of the key energy sources used in European Union. It constitutes above 20% of all gross European consumption, and the share varies among different states. In Netherlands, in Italy, it is almost over 30%, and there are countries as Cyprus which doesn't use gas at all. And in Central and Eastern Europe region, there are also differences, although not that pronounced. There are countries which use above EU's average. This is Hungary and Romania, and there are countries where gas role is relatively small, as Estonia, but also Bulgaria and Poland has not been using that much gas as it used to be. And there is space for increased use of gas. And we see, for example, in Poland in recent years, trend of increased consumption of gas, and this is set to continue. And there are estimates that in next decade, gas consumption could grow from 50% to almost 100% in Poland. So that is quite a lot, yes. And well,
that is essentially in connection to the phasing out of coal in Poland, because at the moment the biggest energy source is coal.
Indeed, yes, yes, it is a lot. It has a lot to do with that, and it's not only in Poland that natural gas. There are a lot of advantages related to energy transition. It is the least emitting fossil fuel. It brings flexibility into energy systems, and it can play a balancing role with systems more and more, relying on renewables, intermittent renewables. It is abundantly available, traded on more and more liberalized, diversified, and interconnected markets with increased LNG availability. It's relatively cheap, or at least it has been until recently, and may well pave in the future way for green gases. And so that's why it has been seen as an important element for energy transition implementation, especially as bridging fuel. And as you said, it has been seen as such in Poland. And Poland wants to decrease coal use and CO2 emissions, and that is why Poland is developing a lot of infrastructure related to natural gas. It is expanding LNG terminal in Świnoujście. It's considering floating unit in Gdańsk. It's building Baltic pipe from Norway, and it is also building interconnectors with neighbors. You probably discussed that last week, the connection with Lithuania, yes? But
yes.
it's not only Poland and Central Europe. For example, in Germany, gas is set to grow, the role of gas, because Germany phases out both nuclear power and coal. But beside advantages, gas is facing also some challenges and questions related to its exact future. One, it's related to climate ambitions, which are bigger due to urgency to achieve climate goals, and that translates into more ambitious climate policies. Also in Europe, we see that, and this is related with increased calls to decrease use of natural gas, and we see withdrawal of financing for natural gas related projects. There was last year, I think, decision by European Investment Bank to withdraw from financing gas-related investment. Revisions is ongoing of European regulations. Then there is new EU taxonomy being almost completed, and all that translates into less and less public financing available in Europe to gas projects, both to infrastructure and to gas generation.
Not only public, I understand also private financing is limited. You know, the so-called
yes.
proliferation of ESG or environmental social governance policies, you know, essentially hinder any investment into oil and gas.
Exactly, not only public, also private, and this EU taxonomy will even increase that. So financing to fossil fuels, including natural gas, will be more expensive. So it's more profitable, yes, to finance that, unless this is linked in a very specific way to green gases. I mean, that this infrastructure or these facilities could be also used for green gases. So, for example, hydrogen. So that is this, you know, gateway to enable some financing, but this is very strict. Also, there is new EU methane strategy under preparation, and so there are calls to make some standards obligatory. This is needed and welcome, but ultimately it may translate into more costly supplies from gas suppliers. So that will mean, again, gas will be less competitive, possibly, yes. And in wider context, globally, these climate policies and these goals mean that, and the drive towards carbon-free economies in long term mean that there are less favorable conditions for investments into oil and gas upstream worldwide. That means, in turn, that in the more distant future, there will be lesser availability of these resources. So, climate policy and concrete measures constitute one of the challenges for the future role of gas, but there are other. And one of the other is what you began with, its situation on current gas markets, and rising gas prices. We see gas rising on European hubs and worldwide. In Europe, this is specifically pronounced. Why is it so? So first of all, demand has risen after COVID pandemic last year, where we also depressed gas demand and economic activity. It rebounded. And as I hear in Europe, its demand is highest in the last 5 years. So this is quite a lot, but in Asia, it's also very pronounced. Also, there has been some limits with not problems, but limits to availability of other fuels. We see high prices of emission allowances on carbon market. We see also some limits on availability of coal, and also trend to switch from coal to gas, and that means also bigger demand.
Recently, actually, in connection to the increase of gas prices, I see a trend, or at least it's widely discussed in press, that a lot of producers who were switching over to gas are switching back to coal, the same coal, or gas and oil. You know, again to save on cost, because as a result of the current, you know, price increase, which is like
yes,
extraordinary. Yesterday, again, the Bloomberg reported that at least 3 energy suppliers in the UK have gone bankrupt essentially because of the difference, in prices, unexpected increase in prices.
Yes, because this price is like rise 300%. So this is in like several months. So this is not a small increase, and exactly. But I was trying to map the reasons for this rise. So the reasons was increased demand and like this focus on gas, but also last year there was freezing winter, storage was depleted very, very quickly in Europe, and we have currently lowest levels of gas in storage in Europe in like 15 years or so, and in some biggest storages in Germany, which are Austria or Netherlands, which are owned by Gazprom or which are like with Gazprom is partner, these levels were like several percent of filling, which is not much, and that also fuels emotions, and as you say, as you know, markets are also fueled not only by concrete situation, but by emotions, by expectation. And these expectations are quite. Everyone expects tough winter, yes, because there is no freeze yet, yes, and LNG is already flowing to Asia and not to Europe. Expected flows from Russia, I will be talking about that later, but also from Algeria, which is saying to Spain, yes, that maybe from November it will stop flowing via one of the pipelines at all. So that is something which fuels, like a nervousness on the market, which again is translated into prices. What's again a factor here is that EU is more than before exposed to that fluctuation. Why it's that? Because, well, paradoxically, because it has liberalized its market and because we have a lot of gas-to-gas competition. According to data, last year, 80% of all transactions in gas were linked to gas-to-gas, transaction. There is no that much of indexation to oil as it used to be, yes? In Asia, it's different. There is more long-term contracts, especially when it comes to LNG, and they are in bigger, part linked to oil. And that makes LNG supplies, well, part of LNG supplies for Asia cheaper and more stable, secure, because they have this LNG long-term obligation.
Asia is also a bigger market, so the suppliers are more keen to supply to the bigger buyer.
Bigger and also more keen to pay more because it usually paid more, so it's used to higher prices, but also it has this part of the import basket linked to oil and in long-term contracts, so it's cheaper, this part, yes. Well, so this is the problem, and also the challenge is that there is no on EU level there's no obligation to keep strategic mandatory gas stocks for winter, yes? In Poland, there is such obligation. There are countries, Italy also has one, but for example, Germany doesn't, UK does not, and it is really a problem right now for UK. What you said, the companies which are going bankrupt, this is the reason of, unprecedented, energy situation there. And these high gas prices contribute to higher electricity prices, together with what I mentioned earlier, high emission, high prices on carbon markets, and that translates into rising price of other commodities or of gas-intensive products. It's felt by fertilizer producer in UK, but also in Lithuania. Achema, I understand, is limiting production. Yes. So more and more of them are curtailing production. We see that also on in case of some metal producers, zinc producers, etc., etc. What it means that the inflation will grow, yes, because that will translate into higher prices of food. And of some industrial production, yes. So that means that we have not only economic energy problem but also political problem, because it happens in post-COVID landscape with people tired with pandemics, but also with economic consequences of these pandemics. And we see that countries in Europe start to, they started to worry about that. Spain from summer was calling for European Commission to take action, actually to take a role in that. And right now, last week, we had an informal energy council of EU energy ministers, and I understand that gas and energy prices were one of the key topics there. So Spain again called for European Commission to issue some guidance to member states on how to react or counteract and minimize negative effects of gas and energy prices to consumers, especially vulnerable consumers, and how to act in a coordinated manner in line with EU regulations. Actually, Spain has already introduced some measures internally, introduced some caps, and even called for joint purchases of gas on EU level. The idea which was brought some years ago when there was talking about energy union and this Donald Tusk proposal. But also,
so essentially, do we see a new trend in that sense that, you know, when the gas prices were low, everybody was talking about liberalism and liberalization and deregulation of the market. And when the gas prices go up, everybody is back to, let's say, social policies again and the regulation and control of the prices.
Well, I think there is something going on. We don't yet know what will be the result of that, because, you know, there is strong sentiment against, you know, increasing like states' role in the markets. But at the same time, as I said, this is becoming a political problem, and we are living in uncertain times. And I think in these times, well, state sometimes has to take a role. And it's not only Spain, but other countries also worried. Greece, Italy, Hungary, Romania, Poland, Portugal, all that countries supported Spain's call for gas and energy prices topic to be discussed this October at European Council. So we'll see what will be the effect. But what is important, I think, that, as you said, last year we saw like record low gas prices. Right now, this price is high to rise to record highs. But there seems to be a structural change on natural gas market and no clear perspectives really for a substantial decrease and coming back to a period of low prices. So, because usually when we see high prices, that means decreased demand, and that we see, but also increased investments in upstream. And as I said before, right now with climate policies in place, with strive to decarbonize and in some places also to limit gas use, investors are not really keen to invest much in natural gas upstream. They instead seek for, you know, finding their own space in new decarbonized world, in new technologies, etc., etc. All that means
the same goes also for midstream, I guess. Not only upstream. You know, midstream pipelines are also, you know, experiencing a lot of financing issues. You know, especially
yes, exactly.
in Europe and America, everywhere.
Yes, and midstream was kind of in problematic situation for several years already. Upstream is, you know, also for sometimes, and right now it is getting serious, but for midstream it was for several years. After unbundling, where, you know, the owners were decoupled from profits actually, so how to finance it? It was a big challenge, and I understand that this challenge is getting more severe right now. So this all means that there are serious question marks about natural gas role in energy transition. It may mean current situation that the decarbonization will speed up, that there will be more investments into new technologies, we'll witness quicker transition, but at the same time, there is also option that people will get tired with the pandemic and high prices and economic challenges, and they will start blaming climate policies for high prices, and the support for Green Deal implementation will decrease. And we see that already Spain is saying that clearly, that this is a challenge. And I think this will be a problem for current European Commission, but also ahead of COP summit in Glasgow. And I would stop here and go to another topic, which we.
But you know, to increase that, to continue that topic, it's still very interesting, you know, in that sense. So obviously, for many years, everybody was talking about you know, increased prices in oil, gas, you know, will essentially reach the so-called tipping point where investment in renewables will be more and more, you know, efficient and more and more economically feasible. As a result of that, we will have more and more renewables, and you know, essentially, expensive gas and expensive oil is like essentially a too expensive drug for a drug addict, which you know you cannot afford anymore, so you have to switch to something else. So that was the, let's say, the narrative for many years. But now, what you very correctly point out, you know, we see a different trend, that essentially the turn to renewables is being kind of put forward as the reason of increased gas and oil and other energy source prices, as a result of which inflation grows, and you know the national economies suffer difficulties, and obviously individual economies also kind of have difficulties to sustain their costs. So you know, what is your personal opinion? You know, which way it's going to develop?
Well, actually, I don't have here. That's why I said that there is this ambiguity. How will it turn up afterwards? Because, well, what is needed for transition and for renewables to, you know, increase, etc., is a lot of money. Yes. So in countries which can afford that and which can subsidize both production, new technologies development, but also consumption. I mean, right now we see that, you know, energy users are suffering. The situation right now on energy markets is really related also to that there is not enough renewable energy produced because wind is not always blowing, etc. But you know, you need that balancing fuels on the market. And that has to be developed until energy storage is developed, etc.
Especially
so, I mean,
Germany is very vulnerable now to gas and oil prices, you know, because you know as a result of phasing out of nuclear, you know, Germany is totally exposed to renewable, and renewables, as you say, they are unfortunately not very reliable. What is happening now is that Germany is forced to burn more and more coal and gas, you know, to just keep its economy going.
Indeed, but I understand that they had been prepared for more and more gas use, and this is one of the reasons behind Nord Stream 2 also. Yes, because they knew that they will, well, there was a decision to phase out nuclear, and then they knew they will go towards phasing out coal also, yes. But this preparation of countries depends on many factors. I think Germany is, you know, it's in relatively good situation. I think it has much less those customers, vulnerable customers, very exposed to high prices. It has also mechanism of transmission of, you know, prices from global markets to, you know, wholesale markets to retail markets, which work, you know, which mean that individual customers don't feel that much as, for example, in Spain, which is, you know, crying for action right now. Yes. So what I say is that everything depends on how much money country has, what is the market structure, mechanism developed, but also from social acceptance and support for energy transition. I think even in Europe, it differs to big extent. There are countries as Germany, where this support is so big that I understand that with their economic level, etc., they will keep on supporting and they will be willing to pay more to make it happen. But there are also countries where this support is not that big, and this increase in price may be enough to, you know, to revert the trend, or to at least create a very important challenge to politicians. Yes, and that can be a case in Central and Eastern Europe.
But if you know, all these matters are becoming more political. So as a consequence of that, we can conclude that let's say countries with big gas resources, aka Russia, so have more and more influence on also not only on the economic lives but also on the political decisions in European Union.
Well, that is a challenge, and I will happily talk about Russia right now, because there is actually reappearing questions about Russia, about its role on the European gas market, because from the summer, when the prices are skyrocketing, Russia only fulfills its contractual commitments, like in long-term contracts, but does not increase gas flows, does not increase sales on exchange, doesn't book additional capacities via Ukraine, via Poland, despite high demand, despite, like I would say, gas first in Europe and high prices, and despite the fact that it is really seen as last resort supplier. Everyone turns to Russia, and Russia is not increasing supplies. And so questions are being asked in Europe, also in Germany, not only in Central and Eastern Europe, everywhere, if Russia manipulates supplies, withholds flows for its own benefit, for example, to push forward for Nord Stream 2 quick opening, or to profit from high prices. And there was even this call from European members of parliament, European Commission, to investigate the role of Russia in that increase of gas and energy prices, and if it does not breach EU competition rules. So there are these questions, you see that all in media, but at the same time, it appears that there are also some internal constraints in Russia and for Russia to increase flows to Europe. There is high internal demand. There were problems with installations at production sites, some fires, and there is need to fill its own huge storage, which were also depleted last winter, and in summertime, they needed to fill as much as 63 BCM of gas, which is kind of considerable, amount. It translated into over 300 million cubic meters daily, which was almost equivalent to usual flows to Western Europe. Yes, so despite high production in Russia, there actually were limited extra volumes to send to Europe. We cannot say, definitely if they could not at all increase flows, but for sure there were some limits. But we could not say definitely, because there is little transparency on production in Russia. So it is unclear what is the actual situation, and probably truth is somewhere in the middle.
They're also exporting via the new pipelines to China, which has a huge gas demand.
Yes, indeed, but they did not rise significantly volumes to China either. So Russia has both some internal constraint, but also uses current situation on gas markets for its own political benefit. We see Russian politicians talking about Nord Stream 2, that if it's open, then the problems will go away. It's not exactly truth, as if it was open like today, I don't think the flows would rise, like they would be able to fly this 55 BCM at once. Taking aside, technical constraints, but also due to situation. But probably it has some flexibility, but not that much as it is being expected. So as I said, all that triggers questions in Europe and need to rethink European relationship with Russia once again. Yes, and on the one hand, we have all these questions about manipulation, impact on EU gas market, calls for diversification and decreasing dependence, especially as we see Nord Stream 2 completed, TurkStream flowing, Ukraine being omitted, etc., etc. But on the other hand, we see recognition that stable, predictable flows from Russia are important for stability of supply, especially when there is peak demand. And that perhaps there is needed some kind of arrangement with Russia, and that is why Spain is calling for this joint purchases mechanism, which would increase EU's bargaining power, could enable creation of strategic gas stocks. But I don't really think it's feasible in current regulatory regime in Europe, and there would be surely strong opposition for that. But again, as you said, liberalization last year seemed like perfect idea. Today it brings, you know, kind of different fruits. So there are also question marks about liberalization, about going away from oil indexed long-term contracts that Gazprom never wanted to quit. Yes, which are right now currently more profitable than this gas-to-gas trade. But anyway, with Nord Stream 2, Russia will both increase its possibilities to flow more gas to Europe if it can and if it wishes to, but also increase its leverage on the European gas market. So the challenge right now is to manage this relationship with all the risks and political problems and internal European divisions there. What is also important to remember while thinking about this Russian role on the European gas market is that in longer term, it depends significantly on the pace and the shape of European decarbonization process and the role of gas in it. And until recently, we saw that gas should be gas role should be important in that process, at least in midterm, because of the way Central and Eastern Europe is planning to, you know, phase out coal and use gas as bridging fuel. Similar situation would be in Germany and in other countries as Turkey or other. But at the same time, we see that Russia also tries to impact the process of your energy transition. And it pushes for more and more, long-term commitments by European customers. And we see that, for example, reappearing in relations to debates about future Ukrainian transit contract that is being pushed by United States and Russia. Well, politicians, not Gazprom, says that, well, yes, maybe, but if Europe commits to buy more from Russia, and it tries to engage and strengthen relationship with key European gas users, and this is key example is Germany here, but also engages in development and partnerships related to low emission gases, especially blue hydrogen. And we see and hear all these debates about how Russia could be supplier of blue hydrogen, and also Nord Stream 2 could be a way for hydrogen from Russia to flow to Germany and Europe.
Okay, but you mentioned Ukraine and the future of Ukraine in the European gas market and as a transit country. Mm-hmm. It's obvious that the current, you know, project of Nord Stream 2 and Nord Stream 1 as well were mainly aimed at you know, circumventing the traditional transit routes through Ukraine, you know, partially Poland, Slovakia. So what will be the future of Ukraine? You know, will they be totally phased out of the gas market as such?
Well, in short term, until 24, we have transit contract negotiated back in 2019, which sets transit volumes at 40 BCM a year via Ukraine. And there is always option to transit more, but no certainty with that. And no certainty also if, how, in which volumes it happens. And we see that increased volatility when it comes to transit via Ukraine, but also via Poland, which has no transit contract right now with Gazprom, with Russian side. But coming back to Ukraine, we see also that it is more and more integrated with European and Central European gas market. It implemented a lot of regulations, especially when it comes to gas transmission and storage. And it means it's also open to third parties. It offers a lot of opportunities to develop gas trade in the region last year with low prices, but also volatility of gas prices triggers that, use of Ukrainian storage, use of infrastructure for short-term transactions. And that means Ukraine plays more important balancing role on Central European, but also European gas market, which is important. As I said, in volatile times, it can be important this winter, but also due to liberalization of EU gas market and this exposure to fluctuations on global gas market situation. Also, what we see right now, and which will be evident in next years, is that Ukraine has become a swing route for additional gas supplies in peak demand time, in winter time. And so this swing route means that it indeed plays a balancing role. And it is important for not only Central Europe, it's important for European Union, and it is important for Russia. But there is no clarity how to price this swing role, how to price this balancing role, and how to regulate it post-24. Currently, as you probably know, there are some talks going on related to this German-US joint statement from July, where one of the provisions were that new transit contract extending post-24 should be, should be agreed. But there is no actually clarity if they are going to develop something concrete and what could that be. I don't really see, for now at least, like strong push from United States for this to happen prior to Nord Stream 2, but we never know, what is happening behind the scenes, behind, public opinion eyes. And as I already told, Russia called for additional long-term commitments from EU customers, but again, there is no clarity if European customers are willing to do so. Perhaps in current market conditions more than ever, but still, it's not evident. We saw, on Monday, new long-term deal between Hungary and Gazprom struck, but it is mostly for supplies via TurkStream, not via Ukraine. In Ukraine actually protested that deal a lot, and there was even summoning of ambassadors, etc. Well, Hungarian ambassador. So some guarantees for future gas flows via Ukraine seem important. It cannot be, I think, left only to market situation, which is kind of dynamic and unpredictable, because this system, Ukrainian gas system, needs to work and needs financing and needs to be technically available, and it's not possible, for it to switch on and switch off like on quite unexpected circumstances. So I think there is a need for some kind of post-2024 deal, and there is a need not only from Ukrainian side, but as I said, also from EU and Russian side, but no idea how it could look like. And even if there is no deal, there are some estimates that there will still be demand in Europe for transit via Ukraine at about 20 BCM. But, well, if it will be feasible for Ukrainians to have this system technically available at any moment, it's not clear. In longer term, the situation here is similar to Russian situation. The transit via Ukraine will depend to a big extent on the future of decarbonization and energy transition in Europe, and the future role of natural gas in it, especially future role of Russian gas. Because as for now, it is Russian gas that is flowing via Ukraine to Europe. What is important to remember is that if there is complete, hard to Russian gas transit, then this all trade within Central Europe and this use of storage will be much more difficult, because there will be no really gas, physically gas there, or not enough gas physically there to use that. But in longer term, we observe already these attempts to develop green gases and hydrogen in Ukraine. and to export it ultimately to Europe, especially Germany. And it is being presented as one of the ways, to remunerate Ukraine for losing its gas transit role. Well, it's a bit false presentation, as the gains from that are, one, uncertain, and B, if they come, they will come in long term, not right now. Because currently there are a lot of question marks. Ukraine is interested in developing green gases, hydrogen, but, well, it's unclear how should it be produced, as it all, it only starts, transition towards renewable energy, and the first stage, this renewable energy will be to feed Ukrainian energy needs, and it would be used for Ukrainian energy transition, and to produce green hydrogen, it would need to, have capacity to produce multiple times more renewable energy than for its own needs, and it is related with huge investments. Yes. The other question is about transmission. We see right now discussions about blending hydrogen to gas networks, but A, it is kind of complicated to, blend it and then to recuperate it. B, for that, we need, gas flowing via Ukrainian system. And this is uncertain. And the last thing, they are discussing new pipelines devoted to hydrogen, but again, this is kind of expensive and as I said, distant future, as we don't know yet.
Huge investment indeed, huge investment.
And how profitable would that be?
Absolutely. Well, but last question, because we're almost running out of time, but last question, turning back a bit to the Baltic region, to Baltic countries, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. What is your take? What will be the role or impact of the current, processes that we have just discussed to the Baltic region, the Baltic countries?
My big question is for Baltic region, this could be really important, but also for Europe and Central Europe. That would current, challenges on gas energy markets related to security of supply, related to high prices, plus decarbonization calls, wouldn't it, result in increased demand for nuclear power? And I think this is the question that, Baltics, Lithuania is posing itself since closure of its nuclear power plant. This is also a question for Lithuania, Estonia, and related to all what is happening with Belarus. But I think that this nuclear power will perhaps, at least in some of the countries, be a winner of current situation, because it may be relatively cheap, because it is clean, yes, and because it is not related with increasing dependency that much. It can be supplied, from uranium from multiple suppliers. We have quite liberalized market of that. In Poland, we have these discussions with United States about developing small-scale reactors, but also these regular ones. So I mean, it offers also political partnerships which are attractive for Baltic region. So, but I'm not really following that much debates in Lithuania, for example, related to that. So I would be really interested in your feedback on how is it looking, and if it really can be the moment to restart thinking about nuclear power plant for Lithuania, which would decrease its exposure to, I don't know, fluctuations on the gas market, for example. Yes.
Well, that has been the discussion, as you may remember, in 2012, we had the referendum on whether new nuclear power plant is to be built or has to be built. And the referendum said no, that it shouldn't be built, So that essentially put an end to the project of the Lithuanian new nuclear power plant back then. And back then it seemed like, a bit of a disaster. Then with change in the energy mix and the energy market situation, everything was quite good for almost 10 years. Now we have another kind of, spike in prices and demand and everything. So yes, it might be that the discussions will come back, in Estonia, there are now at least theoretical discussions about building a new technology underground nuclear power plant to the northern coast of Estonia. So that is also, of course, a very early stage of discussion and idea. But you know, these ideas are there on the table, and I guess we will have to invite speakers on this topic, you know, separately to our energy forum this year, and analyze it more in detail, you know. So actually, indeed, it is a very strategically important topic, but obviously it will not happen overnight. It will take at least a decade to do something in that area, at least, because yes, we see, you know, Finnish experience, how long do Finnish build their nuclear power plants? You know, they have been online. They should have been online already 10 years ago, but you know, they are still not actually. So it's way easier to speak about nuclear energy than to actually build it and make it functional. So that is also true. But with that, I really thank you, dear Agata Łoskot Strachota. You know, it was really a pleasure, and it was really very informative and very, you know, insightful to hear your presentation and to hear your insights about what is happening in the gas market and the European Union, and what are the impacts of the recent changes in the gas market towards the strategic and geostrategic developments in the European Union. So I am sure that all our listeners enjoyed that very much, and I invite everyone to subscribe to our channel. As mentioned, Energy Forum 2021 is a YouTube channel, YouTube Plus. Please subscribe and stay tuned for our next week's presentation, which will be announced to you in due course. And also check the information on www.energyforum.lt, where you can always find the most actual and most recent information on the developments in our event. So thank you once again, dear Agata, and thanks to all our listeners and viewers. Thank you. All the best. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.